Well, hey there, it's your old pal, Mr. Cook, and we're going to go through the Unit 10 conics review. So it first starts off by asking us to classify each conic section, and then a warning that they're trying to trick us, apparently. Okay, well, let's talk about how to classify the conics real quick. All you need to do is just write it up in general form. So in general form, what that means is on one side you get a 0, and then everything else is on the other side, okay, all the other variables and all that stuff. And then once you have it like that, you ask 4 questions. The first question is the following. Do we have both an x squared and a y squared term? So that's the first question. And yes or no have, some implications behind that. The second question that we ask is, okay, so if we have both x squared and y squared, do they both have the exact same sign? So same sign on x squared and y squared. So that's the next question that we ask. The third question that we ask is the last thing. I guess, yeah, there's only 3 questions. I think I said there were 4, but there's only 3 questions. Do you have both x squared and y squared? Do they both have the same sign? And then the last question is, do they have the same coefficient, the exact same coefficient on both the x squared and the y squared terms? Okay, so once you ask those questions, then if you say no to any of these questions, it has an implication. And the last one, it has an implication behind it as well. If you don't have both x squared and y squared, then that means that you have a parabola. If you say yes, you move on to the second question. Do both the x squared and the y squared have the same sign? If you say no to that, then that means that your shape is going to be a hyperbola. If you say yes to that, you move on to the third question. And then the last question is, do they have the same exact coefficients on the x squared and the y squared? If you say no to that, then you have an ellipse. If you say yes to that, then you have a circle. Okay, so there you go. That's how you can classify them. Now let's go through numbers 1 through 10 really quickly and answer them. Okay, so here we go. And this will be the first video. I'll go through these first 10 questions. Okay, so let's get it in general form. We need to get 0 on one side, so I'm going to move the negative 9y squared to the other side. So I get 0 equals negative 4x squared plus 9y squared plus 36. Okay, so now I've got everything on the same side. What I'm going to do is ask my questions and see what kind of conic section this is. So do I have both x squared and y squared? Yep, I do. So yes, so I move on to question number 2. Do they both have the exact same sign on them? Well, the x squared is a negative, the y squared is a positive, so no, they don't. So since I said no to question number 2, that makes this shape a hyperbola. Okay, moving on to question number 2. So question number 2, I put it into general form. Looks like the easiest way to do that is to move that y squared on the other side. So I've got x squared plus 2y minus 8 plus y squared equals 0. All right, so got it in general form. Now I ask the questions. Do I have both an x squared and a y squared? I do indeed. Do they have the exact same sign? Yeah, they're both positive, it looks like. Do they have the exact same coefficient? Yes, they do. Both have a positive 1 in front of them. So since I answered yes to all 3 questions, that makes this shape a circle. So I can say circle for that one. All right, number 3. So I move all the stuff over to one side. Let's just move all the stuff on the right-hand side over. So we've got 9y squared and 99 plus x squared minus 72y equals 0. And then we answer the 3 questions. So do we have both an x squared and a y squared term? Yes, we do. Are they both the same sign? Yep, they're both positive. Do they have the same coefficient? No, they do not. One has a 9 and one has a 1 on it. So that makes this an ellipse. Number 4. So we move all the stuff to one side. Let's do, we'll move all the stuff on the right-hand side over. It really doesn't matter which one that you choose. Let's see, minus 25y squared minus 125 equals 0. So now I ask the three questions. Do I have both an x squared and a y squared? I do indeed. Do they have the same sign? No, they do not. So that makes this a hyperbola. If I move the x over, I get negative 2 minus y squared plus x equals 0. Now that it's in general form, I ask the three questions. So do I have both an x squared and a y squared? I do not. I only have a y squared. That makes this a parabola. All right, and then if I move the x squared over, I've got negative y squared minus 6y plus 6x minus 1, and then plus x squared equals 0. So now I ask the three questions. I have both an x squared and a y squared. They do not have the same sign, so that means that this is going to be a hyperbola. All right, and then I already have this in general form. So let's see, we've got an x squared and a y squared. They both have the same sign. They're both negative, and they both actually have the same coefficient, 1 in front of them. So this thing is a circle. Number 8, looks like I'd have to move over the negative 16x squared and the 80. So I'd get negative 9y squared minus 64x plus 16x squared minus 80 equals 0. All right, and then I ask the questions. Let's see here. I've got both a y squared and an x squared. So yes, they do not have the same sign. One is positive, one is negative, so that makes this a hyperbola. All right, and then number 9, I just moved the x squared and the 3y over. So I got negative 4 plus 8x minus x squared plus 3y equals 0. And then I ask the questions again. So I do indeed have an x squared, but I don't have a y squared. That makes this a parabola. And then the last one, if I just move over the 8x and the y squared, then I get 4x squared minus 32 minus 8x plus y squared equals 0. So then if I ask the three questions, do I have both x squared and y squared? Yes. Do they have the same sign? Yeah, they're both positive. And then do they have the same coefficient? No, they do not. One of them is 4, one of them is 1. So that makes this an ellipse. Okay, so there we go. Looks like there's a lot of hyperbolas in here. Yeah, wow. Okay. A little heavy on the hyperbolas. I would have liked an even mix personally, but who am I to complain? This is a lot of fun math, right? Okay, there you go. So there's the first 10 questions. I think that'll be it for this math video. I almost said music video. That was weird. Okay. So there you go. If you have any questions, go ask your math teacher. Let's go on to the next video. See you there. Bye-bye.